So, what is the main show? Well, look, I feel the show wouldn't be complete, sadly, if we didn't talk a little bit about current events. And that's a little bit breaking into jail. So, I know there's a lot of different opinions and views on Twitch. And so I would just ask our chat remain respectful. If you disagree with my views or the community's views or each other, feel free to speak your views, but don't get abusive, or our lovely mods will help you find other entertainment on another channel. So you've been told. So let's see where to begin. I've told this story before. I guess the place to start. I grew up in Ohio, in the middle of the U.S. Racism was common. I grew up hearing and using the N-word like kind of any other word, with racial tension, racial separation. And that was a long time ago, and the world has gotten better in many ways. And along the way, I adopted a daughter from China. So my daughter is 100% ethnically Chinese. So I care a lot that here in America and around the world, people have opportunity based on what they do, not on how they look. And I certainly believe we all deserve equal protection under the law. So there are great police officers. There are difficult police officers. I'm not judging all police officers. Obviously, there is a problem sometimes, for sure, all too commonly, where arrests for small crimes or no crimes end up in a death. So I will just say there's clearly a bunch of problems. So my wife and I felt that it was time for us to try to make a positive change. And we went out to what was intended to be a peaceful protest in Seattle. We wanted to hear a speaker who, I think his brother died. His brother was killed by police in 2016 here in Seattle. And we wanted to hear that speaker. And so we went out, and I'm going to show an image. It's not as big as it could be. I've just popped it up from my email where I sent it to myself. There in the back, that cloud of smoke, and there's also smoke behind the trees, that's tear gas. And you can see most people are facing towards me as they're being pushed back by the tear gas. So the things went south at the protest / demonstration. And you know the rest of the story, right? That it turned into rioting in Seattle as it had in many other places. I'll show one more picture. And the reason I show this, I've never been to a protest in my life, by the way. I'm not a protester. It's not my thing. But this is me there holding up a sign. And I like to be able to see because I'm tall. So I've climbed up on the chair and then used the chair to get up on top of this like phone or power box. And I'm looking off screen because someone has just set off tear gas over there. But basically, we felt it was time to stand up and try to make a change. And if you're going to follow my advice and be a part of this community, I at least feel I should be transparent with who I am and where I stand and why. And I just think we can do so much better. And I know, Pasha, you can't read the sign. It says you have two choices. You can either be racist or anti-racist. That's it. And some people have asked me, no short quote that was a quote from a guy named Bakari Sellers. Yes, and we had to kind of run for our lives right after this, by the way. It got right after this, people set police cars on fire near us, and we needed to go. And so we went back to our car, and as we were leaving, the rest of the crowd was being pushed towards us, and we almost got caught up in kind of the mobile devolving crowd, and they closed the interstate right behind us. So we kind of got out of Dodge just in time. And this, by the way, is 3 blocks from my office. So I want to be clear. Yeah, it was a pretty good adrenaline rush, Dome Kang. That's true. I want to be clear. This was a difficult situation. it's just a few blocks from the office. It's right near Amazon. And Pentaquan says, I was trapped in my car on Boren Ave when that happened. Yeah. So this is only a few blocks from Boren, as you would know. This is at Westlake, basically, 5th and 6th Avenue. So we had, they closed the interstate, though, because the protesters got on the interstate and blocked the road as a way of attracting attention. So what's my point in sharing all this? And then we'll move on. Well, first, I do want you to know where I stand. If you choose to follow my advice, I'm not going to hide from who I am, and I hope you appreciate the fact that I was peacefully expressing my views, whether you agree with them or not. Second, what's the value of being a leader? This is a channel where I teach how to become a leader, whether that means getting a job and doing your own job or leading other people. It's a leadership coaching show. And what we're trying to do is help you gain the skills to lead and influence others, whether that's through your own expertise or by being a manager or a so-called leader of a group of people. Well, leadership is a tool, and how are you going to use it? And so I use this here. I'm trying to use my platform that I have built, both in talking to you and live with the public, in this case where I'm holding up the sign, and with my team to lead in a particular direction. And the direction I'm trying to lead in is, hey, let's stop killing people trying to arrest them for petty crime. And by the way, let's try to get to more systemic equality so that, by the way, this is really important. I said, by the way, a few times. I am not committed to equality of outcomes. I am okay if one person has more money than another, one person has a bigger house, a better job, whatever, if they had equality of opportunity. The thing is, today, not everyone has equality of opportunity. Racism is part of equality of opportunity. If you systemically, because of race, don't have the same access to education, the same access to safety, the same access to healthcare in the beginning of your life, then you don't have the same chance at the same outcome. If you have relatively equal access to opportunity and you choose to do nothing with it, or you choose to say, I prefer relaxing and working a simple job, and I'm willing to live in a smaller house and take fewer vacations to the beach and more staycations, that's totally fine. My father made that choice. He turned down promotion opportunities because they would have meant travel away from his family. And he was a family man. He wanted to stay at home. I thought he was crazy. When I was a teenager, he had a chance to go to Belgium for 2 weeks and get paid a lot to do it as a consulting gig. And I'm like, I don't even, I've never been to Belgium. We've never left the country, but you should go. And he was completely not into it. Fine, that's a choice. He missed out on great chocolate and great beer. But I know this now. The point is, though, I'm protesting to try and get people closer to having equality of opportunity. And there's a lot of things we need to do in the world to make that possible. So, with all that said, this is not usually the main topic of our show, but I will say this. The reason I hope you all study up and pay attention to what we will talk about is it gives you the tools to become a better leader. First, leading your own life, leading your family, leading your friends, leading your coworkers. And then, if you choose to become a greater leader of people, the world needs, obviously, lots of competent people. We have lots of incompetent people in the world right now. So from a purpose viewpoint, let's talk about how to become more competent. So with that, let me go to where we left off last week. We were talking about tweet length life wisdom. So I started this slideshow that was created by Awesome P in chat, who's hanging out with us today. And this is 68 bits of unsolicited advice by Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly is a longtime contributor to Wired Magazine. And on his 68th birthday, he decided to give out 68 pieces of unsolicited advice. And they were totally fun. And so Awesome helped me put them in a slideshow. Let me run through where we left off. So here's Kevin's background. We're using all this under, we're borrowing and reorganizing and adding commentary to what Kevin shared and giving him credit here. So Kevin published this on his blog, and I want to give him fair reference to it. The blog is linked in my topic. So if we say, if you want to know where this is and go read it yourself, and if we want to give him full credit, there's the full link to kevinkelly.org. We covered all this last week, so I'm going to jump in the middle. We did life experiences last week. You can go see that show. So now we come to personal development. And what I did, you can feel free to ask me questions about other things. Everybody should know at this point how to use our Q&A tool. If you're new to the channel and you want to ask questions, we have an extension that appears on screen and on mobile. You can also use it in your web browser. They will put up the links. They will put up the links momentarily. The mods will. But if you want to ask questions about anything we've talked about tonight, including questions about how to change the world for the better, I will take those. I usually do a couple slides, then jump over to questions. So, no one has yet put this up. I'm surprised. But there's the link for how to ask questions. So now, I did not pre-read these before the show because I read them before and thought they were good. So number one, show up, keep showing up. Somebody successful said 99% of success is just showing up. I agree. 99% of success is just showing up. This is Edison said, invention is 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Tragically, much of life's success is hard work, simply doing the work. And you don't have to work incredibly hard if you work incredibly consistently. 40 hours or 50 hours a week, week after week after week, is how I built my career, not 100-hour weeks. And so, well, Pashi, the good news is questions are moderated. So you can enter your spicy question, and if we don't like it, it will never get approved. So you help us with our channel. You're one of our editors. You put in any question you want, and if it shows up, you know we liked it. And if it doesn't, you know it was too spicy. So you ask your questions. It's totally fine. That's true of everybody. Ask your questions, and if we like them, we approve them and answer them. And if they're off color or inappropriate, we don't. So I don't have a lot to add to this. The part about showing up, I think it's good advice. And I don't have a lot of nuance except to say, build the discipline to, I guess I've given this speech all the time about do the most important thing in the morning every day. If you do that and do that one important thing every day in the morning, you'll have the impact over time. So second thing, to make something good, just do it. To make something great, just redo it, redo it, redo it. The secret to making fine things is in remaking them. I would say that's true. If you look at how editors, obviously this guy's a writer, so no surprise that he would have the model of an editor with rewriting. But a lot of artists, video game makers, very few people pop out their masterpiece on the first try. We were listening to a winemaker recently, and he's old. He's mid-70s or something. And he's one of like 15 guys in the U.S. who's reached some certain, not sommelier, like it's a winemaking certification. He's like one of 15 guys in the U.S., maybe 50 in the world, who has this winemaking certification. And it just requires a lifetime of work. But of course, he's a great winemaker as a result. He's the founder, I don't know his first name. It's BETZ of the Betts Family Winery, BETZ in Washington. And he's this he knows more about wine than I could ever know. So, because he spent a lifetime doing it. All right. Separate the process of creation from improving. You can't write and edit, or sculpt and polish, or make and analyze at the same time. If you do, the editor stops the creator. While you invent, don't select. While you sketch, don't inspect. While you write the first draft, don't reflect. At the start, the creator mind must be unleashed from judgment. I'm curious what you all think about this one, and feel free to pile in, to join in, to make comments in chat. Chat's kind of died. As I cover each point, give your perspective on it. And I want that because I want to know what you think here. And the reason I want to know what you think is I'm not sure about this one. I agree that the creator has to be able to be bold and feel free to create their best. I'm an editor and a critic, and so I don't know if I can ever turn off analysis. So, yeah, somebody says it seems a little dumb. I disagree hard. Agree 100%. So we have controversy on this one. Sounds like not being afraid of failure. Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and I'm not sure this one's right. It may be right in this person's context, a more artistic context. I don't know. If I think about an engineer and writing code, you wouldn't just say, like, oh, just bang out your first thing and don't think at all. So I think this applies more on the artistic side. And yeah, it's long and complex. So this statement's a little more complicated than you would think. All right, let's go on. And then at the end of this, I'll stop and take questions. So I'll look in and see if Pashi's questions, any of them made it through the filter. Okay. There is no limit on better. Talent is distributed unfairly, but there is no limit on how much we can improve what we start with. This I agree with. Everyone can and should be everyone can and should be a lifelong learner. If you're not learning, you're probably dying. You're certainly degrading or decaying. And I've gotten better at things all my life by putting work into them. So I generally think this is the point about having a growth mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you believe what you are is what you're going to be, that's a very depressing outlook. And it tends to lead you to try to avoid failure. Whereas someone who believes they can get better can afford to fail because they believe they'll do better next time. So this is part of the growth mindset. Now, someone in chat said something really interesting. Oh, it's Renee. Bugless coding is an art. No, bugless coding is a myth. So I hate to be harsh, but if you think you can be a bugless coder, I don't. So we were talking about resumes, but if you want to interview, don't ever come to Amazon and say, oh, yes, bugless coding is an art. Any truers? All right. Finally, last on this slide before we go on, or on this screen, if you were not falling down occasionally, you were just coasting. So I think Awesome did a great job grouping these two statements out of the originally randomly ordered list because they really are saying the same thing. If you're not taking risks and failing sometimes, you're not pushing yourself. Now, there's how much you want to push yourself. How much can your ego take? How much can your body take? I don't choose to have high-speed skiing accidents anymore because I'm 50 and they hurt too much. But I wouldn't say the same thing. You know, my teenage stepkids should have high-speed skiing accidents because they'll probably stand up from them. So I think push yourself. This basically, all of this says, so let's review what this says in summary and then I'll take questions. It says show up, redo stuff, allow yourself to be creative. We all found the middle one long and confusing. Keep working on improving and be willing to fail, which is the book I'm always talking about, Jia Jiang and Rejection Proof. Be good at tolerating failure. So let me see what we have over here in questions for a second. Oh, we have a whole bunch, and a bunch of people have voted. Hey, and we talk about that. Okay, I got a bunch of questions in. You mostly slackers who voted on nothing, there's your chance to go vote. So if you vote, it's your civic duty. We're talking about freedoms in America here today. You got to vote. All right. But I appreciate the fact you asked some questions. Oh, I like this one. This one's going to be good. How can I, as an employee, be a leader in helping promote equality in the workplace? Yeah, so I think the first thing you can do is just talk about it. Be open to conversation. Be willing to, not in a confrontational way, have the conversation. In other words, for years we've taught politics don't belong in the office and politics have equaled conflict. But if we can't talk about racism and the problems of racism in the office, they'll never change. And of course it's really hard because you can make enemies so fast. It doesn't mean go up to people and poke them in the eye and say, hey, I want to talk about black rights. That's not going to work. But if it comes up, or if you see someone behaving in an insensitive manner, you can say, look, like I'll give you an example. For those of you who aren't from the US, this will take a little bit of context. But I was in a class. I was teaching a class, so lecturing like I am now in a way. And one of the people asked a question. And as a part of his question, he said, well, he's talking about a salesman or somebody. He said, well, this employee of mine had really gone off the reservation, which is a colloquialism in America that means has gone outside the normal bounds or gone outside the accepted norms. But gone off the reservation specifically refers to the American government put Native Americans, what some others would call First Peoples, in specified land areas called reservations, which, if you want to look at it negatively, you can say is kind of like putting them in outdoor prisons, like large outdoor prisons or camps. And so going off the reservation meant an American Indian had broken out or fled their outdoor jail. Now, when this guy said this in my class, I heard it and I thought, oh, that's not right. But I didn't know what to say right away. And so I let it go. And that was a failure because I didn't know how to call out and say, hey, what I wish I had said is, hey, thank you for your question. I just need to call out that as a part of your question, you said that your employee had gone off the reservation. And I just want to point out that that really is a phrase with unintended racial overtones. And so I just want to be clear that I don't think you did that on purpose, but please be careful. And I want to make clear I don't accept it. And then go on to answer the question. It's things like that. It's also if someone wants to discuss with you your heritage, your background, or your beliefs on something, be willing to talk to them. Because if we all just fear, as Pashi said, oh, you can make enemies so fast. If nobody talks about anything racial, how will racial discourse in America change? Only by burning buildings? That's an expensive way to talk. That's an expensive way to have a conversation. And I think all it does is get people to dig in. So you can probably do a lot of other things, but my approach is just be willing to talk about it. And I found that as a leader anyway, just the fact that I'm willing to talk about hard topics surprises people because they're so used to people turtling up and just hiding, because the safest thing to do as a leader is hide. If I don't take a stand, if I don't talk about anything controversial, whether it's race or religion or politics or gender equality or pay raises and who gets them or how we manage performance or why people get fired and the fact people do get fired, if you don't talk about any of those things, you can never get in trouble. Like this whole show is a bad career idea from an Amazon VP viewpoint, right? Because eventually Yeah, as Renee says, VPs are usually suits politically correct. From a career viewpoint, doing this show is a terrible idea because one day there'll be a clip of me saying something that, particularly out of context, looks like shit. And, I'll get an email from someone at work who's like, did you really say? And then it'll be these like edited sound bites of me sounding like a terrible person. But I've decided that risk is worth it. So maybe it's the cider talking. All right. Good question. Thank you. What is the best way to get to know my coworkers as a new employee? Oh, that's tough if you're locked down, in particular, if you can't meet them in person. My normal answer to this would have been invite them to lunch, take them coffee, take them donuts. The human animal reacts positively to food or drink. And so bribing relationship with food and getting that out of band time would be my favorite way to do it. Fighting Pickles, thank you for the 100 bits. So that would be my favorite way. But can't do that now, so you have to do it virtually. And I would just say, reach out to people. It's the same way we network. You reach out to them with a legitimate help request or something you want to talk about. You also reach out on common ground. If others in chat have suggestions, by the way, feel free to put them out in chat, and I'll read them off. I see Pentaquan says Jackbox Party Pack. That's not a bad idea. A little off color sometimes. But I think the best way to get to know your coworkers now, you're going to have to connect with them. Look for any type of commonality. So look at our show on networking. Use what school you went to, what job you're working on, what sports team you like, anything to connect. First thing I tell a vendor when I meet them is I love lunch. I make my happiness known. That's funny. I don't know. I ask people to talk about themselves. Yes. Most people love to talk about themselves, their families, or their interests and hobbies. That is correct. Ask them a question and be legitimately interested. People love to talk about themselves and their interests. I once went and met the CEO of Wargaming. So the guys who make World of Tanks, World of Planes, World of Warships, etc. And I didn't know him very well. And I just asked him, hey, you've had a lot of success in your life. What's really important to you now? And he talked to me for an hour about how passionate he was about teaching the Russian style of mathematics to humanity. And so one question, like an hour of passion from this guy. Zoom lunch, Discord. How do you charm interviewers over Zoom interviews? Awesome Joy, give them good answers. Smile a lot. But also talk to them like people. Try to relate on a human level. I love the game. Good game. When inviting to food, make sure it's clear it's a coworker relationship. Sure. Yeah, you don't want people to think it's a date. Sometimes you invite a group. If it's cross-gender or whatever, invite multiple people. Hey, I was hoping the 3 of us could go out. The 4 of us could go out. That way it's clearly platonic. Or invite to food in like a lunch spot or bring them a coffee. But yes, everything can be misinterpreted by someone. All right. Next question. This one, we'll see if it's a trick question or not. The next question is, the time it took car A to travel 400 miles was 2 hours less than the time it took car B to travel the same distance. If car A's average speed was 10 miles per hour greater than that of car B, what was car B's average speed in miles per hour? Took car A, 400 miles was 2 hours less than it took car B. Yeah, this doesn't work because car A is going faster. So this is a troll question. It does not work. But that's cool. And yes, If you haven't taken the GMAT, this seems a lot like the graduate record exam, the GRE, and all those tests. But it's okay. We like good questions and got a lot of votes. The GRE was kind of fun. I like the logic part because no one was any good at it, so I was able to do really well because I figured out how it worked. I worry. Okay, next question. We'll take this one. It has 4 votes, and then we'll go back to the slideshow for a minute and answer. We'll go on through some more while you fill in questions. I worry about the effectiveness of the protest as violence raises. How do you feel? Yes, I do. So, wow, do I have to be really careful here? So let me talk first about looting. Violence and looting are separate things, but looting is simply stealing. So the worst part of protests gone wrong is where people break in and just grab an armload of shit they want and call that somehow legitimate. Conflict, which can unfortunately be physical, that falls into other categories, right? So protest becomes rebellion, becomes violence, becomes insurrection, whatever words you would use for it. Our country, my country, not all of you are from the U.S., our country was formed through violent revolution. Clearly, that was a form of protest against British rule. So violence can be a form of protest. I am not recommending it or condoning it in this context, but looting is just a form of taking some shit home you want. So if you want your message to be heard, looting just dilutes the message because it makes the people involved into criminals. Violence, which I'm not recommending here, but violence is a tool by which governments have turned over throughout the world and by which change has been effected. And so those are two different things. You can say you worry about the effectiveness of the protests as violence raises. Well, every country that was formed through revolution, whether that's us or Cuba or the French Revolution or many other revolutions I can't think of, right? The Chinese government came to power through a revolution or through a civil war. The Russian government, probably not as much like the USSR, but lots of governments came to power that way. And some of them have been valuable since then. They're not all like rogue criminal regimes. So war is a tool. I'm a student of history, and I'm not going to say that war, Karl von Clausewitz, one of the great authors about war theory, said war is the extension of politics through other means. So there you go. But if you just want your protest to be heard as a protest, looting is right out and violence is probably out. Because if you want to have a rebellion, have a rebellion, not a protest. If you want to change things within the system, have a protest. So don't mix the two. All right. So we'll jump back and do some slides here. Yeah. Are you reading it right now, Pentequant? Good book. Very, very dense. Karl von Clausewitz. He was... All right, I'm going to sit down for a little bit. Do the next set of slides. We'll come back. I like that you have lots of questions. There's a lot of you here. Put in more questions. Vote them up. I will come back and answer them. We won't get through all of these quotes today, by the way, but we'll get through some of them. So let me jump over and go to the next screen and see what's on it. You'll be as surprised as I am. Okay. So again, we're going from Kevin Kelly, kk.org. The purpose of a habit is to remove that action from self-negotiation. You no longer expend energy deciding whether to do it, you just do it. Good habits can range from telling the truth to flossing. Yes, your brain actually does not nearly have enough mental energy each day to do everything consciously. You need to do as many things as possible on remote control. And so whether you like the power of habit, the leader habit, There's another habit book, Atomic Habits, Learning to Change, Control, and Sculpt Your Habits to Have Good, Effective, Positive, Powerful Habits. Absolutely worth it. I read the book Leader Habit. But yeah, otherwise, if you're doing it consciously, it all depends on self-discipline and on you even remembering to think about it. So Pentequant, that is a good quote. LGR, you're absolutely right. It's really neat. Okay, what happened to the setup? Oh, I switched my whole office around. I got a... Pashi does my editing, so I need to still install the noise gate. I couldn't figure out how to do it on Streamlabs OBS. I know it's easy on regular OBS, but I will get back to it. I haven't forgotten. It's on my to-do list. Meanwhile, I switched around and built a standing desk office with a new chair, different lighting, all kinds of stuff. And I like the lighting better. Part of that's I have natural light coming in the window now. Okay. So this first one's great suggestion. Second one, you can obsess about serving your customers, audience, or clients, or you can obsess about beating competition. Both work, but of the two, obsessing about your customers will take you further. Well, this is certainly what Jeff Bezos at Amazon believes. He tells us specifically we obsess about customers, not about competitors. Pentequant says Peter Thiel would disagree. The thing is, obsessing about your competitors means that you're chasing their thought. You can't obsess about your competitors and invent something completely new as easily as if you were thinking about customer problems. So I don't know Peter Thiel's exact stance on this well enough, Pentequant. You can share it if you want. But I would say that obsessing about your customers generally leads you closer to solving a problem, and obsessing about your competitors can lead you to being short-term focused and to chasing them. So overall, while I don't know the other view as well as I would like to, I don't agree. I agree with this, and I don't think I agree with whatever Mr. Thiel may have said. So, come on, Penta. You can't get his whole philosophy down to a tweet length? So, Renee, I see your comment, but I can never address that here. So, I don't talk about anything Amazon performance related other than to say that Amazon is a great employer for me and has done very well historically. All right. A worthy goal for a year is to learn enough about a subject so that you can't believe how ignorant you were a year earlier. And wow, is that easy. That is so easy to do. If you don't know much about something, the learning curve is so fast. As an example, I've only been streaming about not even 18 months. And while there's a lot I can still improve in both how I deliver and my technology setup, I have learned so much about working with the community, about building things for YouTube. Anyway, I knew I was ignorant when I started. I actually graded myself in the beginning. I said, well, I've worked at Twitch, but as a streamer, I would give myself a D. And even now, I would only give myself a C, but I feel like I'm improving and learning, so it's fun. So this is so true, and you can learn so fast. I only stream about once a week, sometimes twice, and I've learned that much. So in 80 to 100 streams. So, all right, solid B+. Well, thank you, Ointment. That's kind of you. Blessed. I'm glad you love the advice. Okay. Pros are just amateurs who know how to gracefully recover from their mistakes. This is pretty interesting because I think that might be true. If you think about athletes, they're very well practiced, but the pros are just somehow they're good at covering when they miss a shot or a step or whatever. They know what to do. And life comes at you fast enough that it's often more how much you can adjust gracefully than how perfect you are at some theoretical game. So this one's a little abstract. I don't know if anybody, um, uh, there is obviously, like, pros can also have some amount of gift, physical gift. Khalees, what is the Dunning and Kruger effect? Oh, that's up here in the earlier slides, actually. No, it's in another slide deck. Awesome did a different version of this slide deck that had the Dunning and Kruger effect in it, but it's not here. So let me see real quick. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. We'll see if we can pull it up real quick. Oh, yeah. I know what this is. Where is figure 1? Basically, the Dunning-Kruger effect shows that as an amateur, you feel very high confidence, and then you learn enough to know that you're not that good, and then you only become confident again very late in the process. So, where I need to get an image of this to show the point. Yeah, here we go. Come on, load up. All right, we'll just throw this up quickly. So if you don't know what we're talking about, this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, and on the bottom, if you're on a phone or whatever, the x-axis here is how competent you are, and the y-axis is how confident you are. And so what this shows is as soon as you know a tiny bit, you become very sure you're an expert, and then as you learn more and more, you become less and less confident until very late at the far right-hand edge where you're a confirmed expert and you have the evidence to support it. This effect, by the way, is why why Warren Buffett and our previous guest from Twitch who comes on, Brian, who's a finance professor, they say you shouldn't invest in individual stocks yourself, is because most of us, in terms of expertise, are at, I want to make sure I point in the right direction, are at the extreme left-hand end of this curve, and we haven't made it over here. So we think we're over here, above my finger, where we're an expert, and we're really over there where we just think we are. And that's how we lose lots of money. So I'll go back to the other slides now. So yeah, there's a lot of people who think they're at the second stage. That's awesome. Good luck with that. Okay, we already did that one. Oh, because I scrolled up. Got it. Okay, the last one on this slide, then we'll go back to questions real quick because I love your questions. So go vote, damn it. I wish I could make it tell me who voted so I could punish you in chat if you don't vote. Actually, I wouldn't do that, but it's fun. Always demand a deadline. A deadline weeds out the extraneous and the ordinary. It prevents you from trying to make it perfect, so you have to make it different. Different is better. I agree with deadlines. Deadlines are forcing functions. If you don't have a date by which you're doing something, it's called a wish or an aspiration, not a goal. So dates force. You can always set a date. It's a date for the first thing. You bust your ass to do version 1, and then going back on this, right, where it says demand a deadline, fine. So let's go back to this one. You can't redo it until you do it. So iterate. Well, to iterate, you've got to set a date and get the first damn one done. And so many people have so many dreams that they never do anything about. Take step 1, get started. I need to advise on this stream, and if you want succinct advice, go get the hell started and produce something shitty and get it done rather than produce nothing and dream big. Big dreams are nice for you maybe, but they have no actual value to anyone else, including probably you. They're just flights of fancy or pipe dreams. All right, let's see what we have over here for questions. Not much. Very few new votes, although we do have a new question. So, what do we got? Let's go ahead and take the question with 4 votes. We'll do that one. And then we'll smoke through the rest of these. I think I'm going to go into speed mode a little bit to make sure people stay engaged and we get this done in 2 shows. Because I think it's good advice, but I'm probably going a little bit too deep. So, as a manager, I'm not really sure if I should be having more one-on-ones with people just to check in on how they're doing in current circumstances. It can seem a bit strange given how most employees separate work and life. The best advice I have here, and I'm sorry, I see that this is too long. So let me shorten that. I didn't notice that the text topic was way too long. Phooey. I'll answer this question in just a second, but I don't like that it's my OCD won't allow that. So, fixed. All right. Yes, you should have more. The best advice right now is, as a manager, you should be engaging your people, asking how they're doing. To the earlier point, people like to talk about themselves. How are you doing? It's totally fair to just ask people how they are. And I would say, you don't have to do it all the time, but human caring matters. Caring about people as a person. And by the way, people are under double stress this week, at least in the US and to some degree globally. Look, the world is in trouble at the moment. If you haven't seen it, and I know this is a boomer joke for all you Zoomers, that's fine, for even all the millennials. But us old people who use Facebook, there was a good joke who went around that said, hey, mad props to those 2 guys, speaking of the SpaceX launch, who got off the Earth for 2020. Pretty damn funny, right? Get away from COVID, get away from murder hornets, get away from rioting. You saw it on Twitter. You don't use Twitter either. Awesome. You're a TikTok addict, and I know it. But they did make the right choice to get the hell out. Australian fires, yes. There's so many. The car A versus car B. Well, Furoki, I didn't think about it that long, but if you have the answer to car A versus car B, you go ahead. And yeah, the point is, people need you to check in because right now life kind of sucks for a lot of people. Even if they have a job, even if they're in tech like I am and they're working from home, they have old relatives they're worried about, or they have someone who is, they are a person of color, or they have friends who are people of color and they're worried about that, or they have friends who are unemployed, or even worse, they have friends, and I do have a friend who fits this. You have a friend who's a person of color and who's unemployed as a result of COVID and is old enough that he could, if he got sick from it, might die. Like, it's only one friend who's in all of those buckets that I can think of, but like, it's times aren't fantastic. So be aware. All right. What else? I'm not going to take any of the other questions because this one had a lot of votes. I'll go back and run through some more of the visuals. So let me go do that real quick. I'm going to speed up though, like I said. All right, never use a credit card for credit. This will seem like impractical advice for some of you who are broke, but my God, please, if you're good at math, do your own math on how bad credit card debt is. Have any other kind of debt. Beg your family to help you. Starve, eat ramen noodles, do something. But credit card debt is just crushing. I got a notice from my credit card company today, and the interest rate on the credit card, which doesn't matter to me because I pay it off, is 15.42%. That's like theft with law, right? Yeah, get a payday loan instead. That's a great idea, Furoki. But actually having a payday. So look, I know some of you don't have a lot of money, but try to live. The real advice here is then live within your means if at all possible. Don't be in debt to losers. The other thing is, of course, things won't make you happy. Other than food, which will make you live, things won't make you happy. For every $1 you spend purchasing something, expect to pay $1 in repairs. I thought about this and it seems pretty true. other than please God, not my house. If I have to spend that much repairing my house, I'm really sad. But everything else, it might be true. I agree with this part. Start by buying the absolute cheapest tools, upgrade the ones you use a lot. The way I think of it is sports equipment. When I first started skating to play hockey, I bought cheap skates, and I felt okay buying cheap skates because the problem was the skater, not the skates. As I got better as a skater, I then bought very expensive skates because they helped me. I did the same thing with skis. So generally, don't buy really, like, if you're going to consider, say, taking up mountain biking, maybe don't spring for the $6,000 mountain bike until you ride a few times and see if you like it. So Sean123 is a mountain biker. He has the expensive bike because he knows he likes it. I don't think I like it, so I haven't sprung for the bike. Mexico rules. Yeah, annual interest, but still owing. All right. When you're young, spend at least 6 months to 1 year living as poor as you can, owning as little as you possibly can. So this is like a 68-year-old dude saying this. So he may have been saying it because of his experience in like the 60s. But I think it's generally good advice. Figure out how little you can live with. Figure out how little you need so that you're not dependent. Be capable of living on little, and then when you have more, it will seem like tons. Reset your bottom. Reset your low point. So I like this advice, and I hope the rest of you like it as well. Because, look, some of you want to be rich, and my God, if I can help any of you be Bill Gates, that's fantastic. Or whoever, Bezos, Musk, please do. Please change the world. Please collect lots of money doing it. Please have people hate you for being a billionaire. Sounds fine. Don't worry about it. But do this first so that if you go broke along the way 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, you feel fine about it. Saving money and investing money are both good habits. Small amounts of money invested regularly for many decades without deliberation is one path to wealth. 100% frigging absolutely. The Miracle of Compound Interest. Go see the shows Devin and I did together with Brian Weller and others on the show, the economists, the finance professors. Money put in over time, compound interest, the value of $1 or a peso or a lira or whatever over time, a shekel, turns into a fortune. So most of you who watch this show are young. Most of you, tragically, I could be your father. In that case, invest a little bit now will make you more than anything you can do at my age, because it just compound interest grows so much. We've done the finance show before, though, so I won't kill it. Let's see. We're at 6:15. Let me check questions, and then we'll see if we want to do the interpersonal relationships part real quick. Oh, let's drop out of that. Let's see. Oh boy, let's wade into the deep end. What the hell? We'll take this question on Black Lives Matter and corporations. Yeah. So we'll take this question. We won't take others because none of them have more than 2 votes. And then we'll go back and do a few more slides and hang out. But I'm glad you guys asked this. Some companies have come out in support of the Black Lives Matter. That's what BLM is, the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't think major corporations truly care about the plight of black communities. They only care about image and profit. What's your take? Do major corporations care? First, corporations are not animate entities. They do not have brains, hearts, souls, or anything else. So, corporations themselves don't give a shit. And I say that because it's important to remember that corporations are set up to take a set of resources and turn them into goods and services that get sold for money and returned as profit to their investors. So corporations are normally optimized for that task. To the degree that a company cares about Black Lives Matter, it's only as a corporation, if a corporation could care, it would care only in the degree that it affects profit. So if Black communities having more purchasing power or more ability to get educated and more ability to contribute to the workforce or to contribute to consumerism would help the company, they would be for it, logically, from a purely financial viewpoint. However, there is an exception to this. Corporations are formed by leaders, and those leaders are human, and those leaders can have feelings, can care about communities. And the answer is some leaders have formed their companies to be caring, and some have not. Some leaders actually care, and some leaders are manipulative a-holes. So I think you need to look at the leader and the culture of the company. Some companies, I think their leaders and their culture truly care. Some companies are opportunistic, and it shows up. It shows up over time, and it shows up. What it is what are they doing when there is no crisis? A company that only makes statements and does nothing and only shows up when there's big news, they don't care. Companies, somebody says, not somebody, Pinnaquant, he's coughing. He's having a coughing fit, but I thought I heard Enron in it. Corporations, there are some leaders at corporations who truly care, and they put effort behind it. So if you want to judge a corporation that says Black Lives Matter, wait 6 months and see if they've done anything about Black communities. Wait 6 months and see if they've invested anything in any sort of equality. So there you go. All right. So somebody's asked another hard question here. Let's go after it, which is, if 90% of ComSci grads are Caucasian or Asian males, how will you increase diversity? Very slowly. So you have to change. First, ComSci is not the only major on earth. Even a tech-heavy company like my own, like others, hires lots of other people. So one thing you can do to increase diversity is, fine, if you're going to under-index in diversity in this one area, you're going to have to over-the-hell index in diversity in others. So just because, don't listen to a tech company that says they can't be diverse because ComSci grads are mostly Caucasian or Asian. That's true, and that is a reality, but they can be diverse elsewhere. So are they diverse in marketing, PR, human resources, etc.? Second, what are they doing to change the mix over time of ComSci graduates, to cross-train people, to bring people in from other fields? Basically, diversity, and I'm no expert in this. God knows, I've only started working on it really hard the last couple years. Diversity is incredibly hard. I'm hiring for a couple of roles for my team right now, and I'm running into exactly this problem. Not only are mostly leaders Caucasian or Asian ComSci grads mostly Caucasian or Asian males, but I'm generally hiring executives who are mostly Caucasian or Asian males. So when I go out and look for executive candidates for a role, unless I go really hard beyond that, I have very little chance of seeing a qualified woman or differentially gendered or different race candidate. I don't see that. Yeah, and of course I don't speak for Amazon here. I'm not talking specifically about Amazon. Why do we judge diversity on the color of the skin? Well, we judge it, very nice, ask this in chat. Diversity can be judged by lots of things, but to the degree that people have been discriminated against and held down because of the color of their skin, we have to judge, has that changed? So many of us here would prefer not to invest, not to talk about color of skin. But the reality is other people have used color of skin. Other people have used color of skin to discriminate against people. So that's why we have to talk about it, because it gets used to keep people out of jobs and out of country clubs and out of power positions. So it has to be used. It's just like we shouldn't be talking about your sex organs. In a perfect world, we'd be talking about your performance, about your ability, about your passions, not about your sex organs. But your gender ends up being part of the conversation because, for example, in the past, men could vote and women couldn't. And many other discriminatory, that's discrimination. Many other discriminatory patterns related to gender. So hell yeah, we have to talk about, we're forced to talk about it because it's been used in the past. It's not because we want to. It's not because we want to be like, oh, hey, the only way you can be diverse is gender and skin. It's not how you think. It's not where you're educated. It's not where you grew up. Those don't count. Bullshit, they all count. The problem is we have to talk about the one because I absolutely watched when I was in engineering college. I had an engineering professor. I saw him tell one of the brightest engineering students I knew, happened to be a woman. I saw him tell her, well, women don't really belong in engineering. What a clod even 40 years ago. I'd have been 40 years ago. Even 30 years ago. In my engineering class, we have a lot of engineers here. I was a computer engineer. My engineering class was 10% female. I hope if you're in engineering now, it's higher. The problem is women get out of those classes. They come to work. They discover that it's a bro culture full of misogynistic behaviors now, and they leave later. It's still the same gender breakdown, which is sad. We went backwards, actually. So it depends. Some places are higher, some are lower. All right, we've got one more question with 3 votes. I'll take that. How do I get started making my own inventions and patents? Is there a process of some kind? For sure, there is a patent process. You can Google the requirements for a patent. They require that something be a novel invention and a few other things. So you can learn about that. But the real thing, patenting is not that interesting. Inventing is interesting. The tool I use, and I've talked about it before, I think, by the way, I have a whole YouTube show on how to invent. But the book I use is called A Whack on the Side of the Head. And it's a way to generate new thoughts. But basically, to invent something, you're going to have some expertise. So how do I get started making my own inventions? Number one, you're going to have some expertise in what it is you want to invent. For example, if you want to invent a cure for cancer, but you don't understand the basics of biology, you're not going to be able to invent very well. Like, how would that possibly work? So to invent, you're going to have to know a fair amount about the state of the art in the field. Now, maybe you want to invent in something you already know a lot about, like you go to the bathroom every day. So maybe if your idea is, I want to invent better things for the bathroom, you already have 20 or 30 years of expertise and you could do that. But if you want to invent in certain areas, you're going to need expertise and training. We often have a guest here, Liger. Liger is an infectious disease specialist working on tuberculosis. He's an MD already. He's getting his PhD because you need that kind of level of expertise to invent anything new in tuberculosis treatment. At the same time, you're going to have to then put in the work, going all the way back to what we showed at the beginning of the show where we said, hey, if you want to, showing up is a lot of it. Invention doesn't happen for free. So if you're thinking, well, I'm going to invent something without having any expertise and without doing a lot of work, maybe, probably not. So, let's see. The drink was good. We're almost out of time. I think I'll cut it there actually this week. We've talked about a lot of hard stuff. And the next, I don't know as I'll do this show next. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to Kristen at 7 p.m. will be my next show. But we're going to talk, the next part of this is interpersonal relationships. And we have enough slides to do one more. I may skip it for a little while and come back to it because I've done 2 of these in a row. So this is your chance. There's 100 of you here. If you want me to talk about anything else I haven't covered, put in questions or vote right now. Otherwise, I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. Come back tomorrow. We'll have Kristen, who is the woman I've been coaching long-term for nearly a year now. She was an individual contributor when I met her. She has grown to be a moderator in our chat oftentimes, but also to be a manager in her workplace. So she's a new manager. You can get a lot about career growth, a lot about being a female in the workplace, whether you are female or you're simply interested in the challenges. You can get a lot from listening to that. You can also see what a good coaching process looks like. And so you can figure out if you need a mentor or a coach. All right. And I don't think she's here, T Weirdo. Yeah, she's not here right now. But leaving that aside, let me take this down. We'll go back to the one camera view and see what your questions are. Any other questions? No. All right, I could speed around the rest of the questions to fill things out. They're all few votes. How about working smarter and harder? Wouldn't you say you exponentially increase your career and output? Sure. If you can do both and you can sustain it, working both smarter and harder is awesome. Go for it. Please do. Wouldn't that exponentially increase your career output? I don't know about exponentially, but probably. So I'd rather work smarter than harder, but both is even better. So, yeah, totally. So it's a matter of trade-offs with other things in your life. Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have recreation? So, but to the degree you can afford the time and the energy, go for it. It will definitely earn you money and promotion as long as you follow the magic loop. See other shows for that. Next, I am a point of contact in tech. No, a person of color. Sorry about that. POC can mean a lot of things. I am a person of color in tech. I often hear people like me referred to as diversity hires. I have even been told, I assume, that I only get my opportunities because I am black, despite my hard work. How would you recommend I deal with the negative effects that this belief has on self-confidence? So my first answer is going to be really honest. I don't know. I've never walked a mile in your shoes. So I will give you my best advice, but it's absolutely, I don't know about that. It is true that people of color, women, different protected minorities are referred to as diversity hires because they increase the diversity. I know at my company, we try to increase the flow of candidates, but still pick or hire with the same criteria. So it would be bull that someone got their role only because of their race, gender, etc. The fact is, broadly speaking, statistically, if you are black, which you are, you have come through likely more adversity to get your role than anybody else. Now, again, different situations vary, and there are many white people, Caucasians or Asians or others, who have had very hard lives. So I'm only speaking about averages. But if you look at the average background, the statistical wealth, access to education, odds that both parents are together, blah, 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 black person probably came through more shit than the average white person in the same job. Average. Given that, unfortunately, you have to realize that whoever's saying that has some issue. And I don't know, like, how do you shrug off baseless criticism? If someone's in your face and they're clearly wrong, they're still in your face. I'm actually very, I don't like being criticized and I don't mind feedback, but I don't like people who just attack me. And particularly baseless criticism really upsets me, where people judge me wrongly. So I get you being upset about this. How do you deal with the negative effects? Find people who will support and defend you. Make allies and friends around you who will tell you the truth you need to hear. And if they hear this other person, will tell them to shut the fuck up. But there's no magic cure to your problem. This is the whole problem. This is why cities are on fire in a different way, is because our world has to worry about race, color, gender. We can't all just be people. We're just not there. And by the way, bad news, we will not get there in your lifetime or my lifetime. We won't. I wish we would. We won't. You know, I recently saw research that said the U.S. will reach gender equality, which is a lot closer than racial equality. At its current rate of progress, the U.S. will reach full gender equality at its current pace in 102 years. And I don't know exactly how they determined that. Different countries were rated at different speeds. For some countries in the Middle East, and I'm not picking on anyone in particular, it was almost 500 years. And for like the best country on earth, which I think was one of the Scandinavians, it was going to take like 12 years. So yes, maybe we'll hit the singularity faster instead. And then we'll all be slaves to the machines. It will be fine. We'll all be equally just biological distractions, and that will be better. Last question. What do you think about the ACAB, All Cops Are Bastards movement? I think it's not true. I don't know anything about this movement, so I'm only judging by the words. I've never heard of this movement, so I'm only judging it by the English words written here. And I'm not an expert on it. But given the question, so being super clear, if this movement has some hidden thing that's horrible or whatever, I don't know what the words mean beyond the English. So if they have some other agenda, I don't know it. But I have met some really fine police officers who are wonderful. I have also been harassed by some really jerk police officers who were douchebags. Mostly when I was younger. But I like to go out and walk. And I was walking in my own neighborhood and a cop pulled me over, pulled over next to me and like, what are you doing out here, son? Don't want to have any problems in this neighborhood. Have you been drinking? I'm walking in my own neighborhood and I'm white. I'm as white as snow, right? Like actually people tell me I need to change my lighting so I look less white. 'Cause I do. I look extremely white in my streaming lights. I don't know this group, but some cops are bad and some aren't. Here's what I will say. I hate police brutality. All right, story time. I've never told this story. So for those of you who stayed around, you're going to get a story that you've never heard. Yeah, why are you walking, bro? So my brother, 18 years older, now deceased, became an alcoholic in part because of this. But he used to grow marijuana, and long before it was legal. So he got busted a couple times as like a late teenager for growing pot or selling pot in Ohio, where it's still very illegal. It's not like where we are now. And he did like a night in jail, 2 nights in jail, whatever. And then he got off and got away with it for 20 years. And then eventually he got busted again. Now, he's 18 years older than I am. And so I'm already old. So he's really old. And the thing is, that means when he got busted, it was pre-cell phone because I was a college kid. So like say 1989-ish, he got busted. Well, when the cops came to his house to raid because they've been tipped off by a snitch who had bought some stuff from him and gotten caught, and they've been like, hey, if you tell us where you got caught, we won't put you in jail, we'll put your dealer in jail. So he ratted out my brother. And when the cops came, they handcuffed my brother, which is fine. They're arresting him. He was doing something illegal. I don't feel bad about him getting arrested. Like, he was growing pot and selling it. That's the consequences. Suck him up. I don't have any problem with that. But the cop then called the press from my brother's phone in his house because it's pre-cell phone. And back then there was such a thing as what was called long distance, where you got charged more if you called more than one town away. So the sheriff so wanted to tell the press that he had made a drug arrest that he called he's got my brother lying on the floor of his own house, and he's using my brother's phone to call the press and brag about his accomplishments. That's just sleazy. So are all cops bastards? No. Some cops are real jerks, though. Free phone, yeah. Second, I'll now defend cops. Cops have a challenge which I would not want. And the challenge I wouldn't want is every day they deal with scummy people. Sometimes, not everyone is scummy, but they are paid to go deal with criminals. And they are paid to go deal with people who lie to them, who might want to hurt them, who assault them verbally. It is part of the job. Okay, you took that job. I get it. But it's got to be really hard day after day, year after year, to deal with people who tell you every effing lie they can come up with and are always, or it seems like always, scheming and out to get you. That would make anyone paranoid, right? Because we've said on this channel before, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around. Who do cops spend a lot of their time around, right? They spend their time around very difficult people. So I have sympathy for the fact that cops become jaded and troubling. I have sympathy for it. But nonetheless, you took the job. And I'm never going to excuse kneeling on somebody's neck and killing them in the midst of what, as far as we know anyway, was an arrest for a minor crime, a minor alleged crime. And I'm never going to excuse calling the press to burnish your own image from my brother's phone in his house. Like, it couldn't wait. Oh, the press deadline's coming. Got to get this hot tip in. That's disgusting. And I don't defend my brother, okay? He was an idiot. He had a couple drug busts, and he grew more drugs, and he got busted, and he went to prison, not jail. When I was in college, he went to prison for a year. And, he got to make big ones into small ones, as they say, right? He got to, work for a year in prison. And it screwed him up, of course, and he came out and he drank himself to death, and that's why he's dead. He had drinking problems before that, but he really had them after that. And so I'm down a brother. Is it specifically because the cop called the press? No, it's because of my brother's bad choices. But I'm not going to forgive okay, I'm a forgiving person. I'll even forgive the cop for doing it. But I don't think it was very tasteful, and I think it was bad police work. So anyway, yeah, nobody, underwears. That's what I love about America is people get to make their own lives. My brother had, a lot of opportunity. He chose to go one direction. I went a different direction in life. And we're very different people. He's now unfortunately deceased. But, I loved my brother. I spent time with him when I could. He made poor choices. But I think our police system has a ton of problems. And as for my brother, what I love about America is that unlike sort of traditional societies elsewhere where you are judged by who your brother is, I can stand here and talk to you all about how, yeah, I did have a drug dealer brother. I had a drug growing brother, who was, I used to say he was an entrepreneurial farmer. And that was before entrepreneurialism was as common. But you get to be judged by who you are. So, and things just buffered. So I wonder if I'll lose you because my incoming stream just buffered. So if the frame rate drops, sorry. So that's a good note to end on, a good personal story. Look, I could go on about the police all day and all night. There's so many things that need to be changed about our police, how heavily armed they are and how quickly they go to using heavy arms. At the same time, how we don't do psychological screening. There's this idea of the thin blue line where cops stick together. And so on the one hand, I don't think we give cops enough emotional and psychological support. On the other hand, I think, unfortunately, there's a ton of pressure on any cop who's vaguely a good cop to stand by and cover up for the bad cops. And I wish that wasn't true. I wish cops would police themselves. I wish cops would stand up for what's right. And when they see one of their people, do something really bad, I wish they'd throw them out. But they don't. Not always, anyway. So there's so much to fix there. I hope we get on with it. But yeah, I like what somebody put here in chat. Mr. Zev said, everyone has the opportunity to be a drug dealer or a VP. Well, I hope so. I hope all of you who have taken the time to stay here and enjoyed this show, I hope you lean more towards being a VP. Or if you're going to be a drug dealer, please consider doing it in Amsterdam, California, Colorado, Washington, someplace where it's legal. So anyway, VP of drug dealing. So they call that pharmaceuticals, and we have several people in chat who work in the pharma industry. So if you want to work in the pharma industry or in Canada, that's another option. You can be the VP of drug deals. So with that, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you all very, very much. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific, coaching Kristen, and next week with another new show. Hopefully our world will quiet down and have peace, and we'll fix some things. So with that, I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Good night and cheers.